It's in the evening. You're not actually on the beach. You're supposed to be grading, but you don't really want to grade, and so you procrastinate. What do? Well, you go into your office and you say, I wonder how many books I've written over the years. I'm going to go with the number 30. That's the number I've been going. The very first book I wrote, it was a New Testament survey, and I was very glad to write it at Indiana Wesleyan University. That one has gone into a second edition, and in fact was condensed by the Wesleyan Church into a shorter version. Even though those are 3 editions, I'm going to call them one book. That same year, 2003, my first kind of scholarly book came out, Understanding the Book of Hebrews. 2003 was a good year. While I'm on to textbooks I've written, let me tell you that I've also written a brief guide to biblical interpretation. It was actually a smaller book originally called An Introduction to Biblical Hermeneutics, but let's not count that. And it was reprinted in a condensed form. It's the same book by Wesleyan Publishing House. So three books. Again, I'm going to count that one. So that's a New Testament survey, an introduction to how to read the Bible, and an understanding the book of Hebrews. I'm going to call that 3 books. Now, I've also written a philosophy textbook. This is a really good philosophy textbook. I bet your students would find it more useful than whatever philosophy textbook you're using. I'm going to call that my 4th book that I've written. 4 books so far. Okay, while we're on scholarly books, I mentioned this, my first scholarly book, 2003. We're at 4 books, and now they're 10 years after my dissertation in 2006. There is this, which again, I get no royalties on because nobody buys it. That's 5. I got a lot more mileage out of A Brief Guide to Philo. I think that makes 6, doesn't it? Believe it or not, this little book, and it was all part of the plan, has actually been translated into 3 different languages. It's been translated into Korean, it's been translated into Russian, and it's been translated into Hungarian. And so, but all that's just one book. Where was I at? Something like 7? I can't remember. Let's say 7. We'll find out. It turns out to be 30. My most recent book is, don't look at it, is on the market, but we're not talking to anybody about it. It came out just last year, 2019. So yes, I have written scholarly books in the last year, believe it or not. Now, what about all of my lovely books on the Bible? So we started with Paul. Paul, Messenger of Grace, Paul's earlier writings with Wesleyan Publishing House. Then a book on Romans. Paul, Soldier of Peace. The title has nothing to do with Romans, but it's about Romans. And then Paul, Prisoner of Hope. This is the prison epistles and the pastoral epistles. Then we went back and did Jesus. We did Jesus, the mission, which is the essential core of Jesus' ministry. And then Jesus, Portraits in the Gospels, which talked about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and their specialities. And then to finish off the New Testament, we did the book of Acts, the early church reaching the world, and the rest of the New Testament through Revelation, the early church, letters to the body of Christ. Okay, I don't know what number we're at, but it's going to be 30 when you condense it all. Now, each of those books on the New Testament had a couple of devotional books that went with it. So when it comes to Jesus, we have 4 devotional books. The Passion of Jesus, about the Passion in Mark, Parables of Jesus, the Witness of Jesus, and the Wisdom of Jesus. I think the Wisdom of Jesus is about the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, so 4 devotionals on Jesus, and then we have devotionals that have to do with Paul. So the 2 devotionals that go with Paul's earlier epistles, one on our hope, which is 1 Thessalonians, our joy, Philippians, lovely for a church Bible study, 2 on Romans, our righteousness, our relationships, going devotionals on the book of Romans. And then for the prison epistles, we have our purpose, devotionals on Ephesians and Colossians, and our faith, 1 Timothy and Titus devotionals. And there you have it. Those are all the books. Oh, no, there are more. Sorry, there's more. Another very early book I did was for Wesleyan Publishing House, a commentary on 1st and 2nd Corinthians. That was in early 2000s. What was it, 2006? So about the same time that my revised dissertation came out with Cambridge. And then I've recently done Seedbed, the letter to the Hebrews, one book. Okay, those add up to 30 books that I've written officially. But of course, I get tired of waiting on publishers. So I've written some other books in the meantime and self-published them. The True Wesleyan, following the name of a very early Wesleyan publication. I've done 3 Gabriel novels, Gabriel's Diary, The Enthronement, Gabriel's Diary, The Incarnation, and Gabriel's Diary, The Creation. I thought this might be a cult favorite on the creation, but it hasn't gone anywhere. I got bored last year, and I self-published Charlie Horse Wesley, A Horse Strangely Warmed, which is a horse's view of the life of John Wesley. I'm actually quite proud of that too, although again, nobody buys it. And then if you want to know how to grow an educational institution, 6 Years a Dean, which is a chronicle of the founding of Wesley Seminary. Then I've done some other books that aren't under my name, like Devotions with Dad, but you'll never find that one. And let's see what else. There's at least one other book. Oh, I wrote a book on the problem of evil, which is self-published. And there you have it. 30 official books and quite a number of self-published unofficial books that I have written over the years for fun. And now I've got to go back to grading.